Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Greg Bassey, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's another big day here at PAC 14. We have the boss of the Wicomico County Council with us today, John Cannon. Welcome, John.
Glad to be here.
So what's going on with the council these days? You guys are constantly busy. You never seem to get a break.
Well, that's what we were paid to do. That's why we get the big bucks.
But every week it's an exciting issue. And I want to talk first about the storm drainage thing. Because that seems to be the hot button issue right now in the county. We had the two big floods, 2 summers in a row out on Pratt Road. People have flooding.
Sure.
And they're all running around going, what's the county going to do to fix this? But they don't understand that there's a responsibility on their end.
Well, it's a very interesting topic, and you're right. It is really one of our highest priorities at the time. And I'm guessing will be for probably a period of a year, because I mean we want to start solving the problem now, but we know it's going to be long term. It brings up a very good point, though. You talk about what their responsibilities are as homeowners, et cetera, but it's sort of a combination, and I think it's up to the county to sort through whose responsibility is what. Some of the ditches are the responsibility of the county. Some of the responsibilities of the ditches are the homeowners. And even when it's the responsibility of the homeowners, what is the county's responsibility to oversee that and to enforce that to a certain extent? And we're all for property rights and everything else, but the question that we're seeing and the difficulty that we recognize is the fact that you can have 3 or 4 homes that clean out their ditch, religiously, and then you will have a 4th landowner that doesn't clean out their ditch. And just that one issue will create a problem for the entire neighborhood. It can be that simple.
Yeah, they'll throw their grass clippings back there or branches. They don't seem to understand that it's really an essential.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And we do have some restrictions on homeowners associations. Because when I was president of the Homeowners Association, and I actually was visited and met with a member of the county, and we went and we looked at the ditches that we had, and we looked at the ponds that were there. And he very clearly stated, John, you must address these issues. And of course, we had it in our budget to do that.
Right.
Extrapolating that out to the individual landowners in the county is a much larger task. But I do think it's something that needs to be addressed. We had the storm March of last year, a year ago. And at the time when the Public Works came before the council, we said, well, the only silver lining here is the fact that we now hopefully will see where the weaknesses are in the systems, and try to make sure that we pinpoint those within the next 6 to 8 months, and actually come up with a master plan. We still have to have some resolution to that, and it's been a year later. So I think we'll really get it into high gear and address those concerns, because it is a real issue right now. And I think it's a priority we have to look. I think the 10-year storm is now a 1-year event. Yeah. So it's very true. And that is our responsibility, at least to give the homeowners some idea of where they stand, where the county stands.
Yeah.
I don't know if the council wants to go so far as to have town hall meetings in each quadrant of the county. It may be a good way to try to to be able to pinpoint on a map where the problem areas are.
Right.
But at the same time, we want to make sure we have some type of solutions at those meetings. So.
And to get the word out that you're responsible. Right. If there's a tree in the ditch or something, call the county. They'll come help you.
Yeah, it's a good point, too. And it's part of what Weston Young and Dallas Baker had suggested from Public Works. And, of course, Weston's now in administration. But education is a primary part of the whole process as well.
Yeah, Weston had a great line. He said people will call and say, there's water in my basement. And he'll say, well, we lost Nanticoke Road. That's how bad the storm was. We lost a road.
Right. But on the other side, you have people who can't afford it, who are, it's costing them $2,000 to $4,000 to replace the insulation under their house.
Yeah.
One woman said her whole first floor is gone. It cost her $200,000. They have to live in a trailer outside the home because the expenses are overwhelming. One gentleman said, I can't even go on vacation because I'm concerned.
Yeah.
If the flood comes and all of a sudden I've got to get back to the house for some emergencies.
The other interesting issue going on right now is the property thing. Conley Mill Road, north of Henry Parker Park. A group there wants to give the county some land, and for the first time in my memory, the council's not sure they want the land.
I understand that. I do understand that. That's a difficult decision, really. I mean, someone's giving you a gift. The only downside to it from the county perspective is we'd lose a little over $18,000 a year in the property taxes. But what we're really trying to sort through is, are there any restrictions on the property at this time?
Right. There's a lot of environmental stuff there.
What there could be, whether it would just be dead land that we'd be sitting on for 50 years, or whether there is something to it. You know, it's been suggested that a bridge could be built across the creek, and then you could have a whole new. But you know, Joe Holloway's good. Joe Holloway's been out there numerous times, and every time I talk, he goes, "You can go with me. You can go with me." I'm saying, "Okay, we will, and we will." Yeah. But you know, he goes, "You can't just put a bridge over that creek." He goes, "It's a little more to that," and other things that come into play as well. You know, I'd love to see it as an extension of Henry Parker, or I'd love to see it as a standalone. Somebody suggested an RV park or something to that extent. But it's over the Paleo Channel, so we have to wonder whether that's going to go over and whether it's going to even be acceptable to do that. Of course, we know the Senator Salisbury's over the Paleo Channel for the most part. But you know, you want to be cognizant of that and try to be you know, respectful to the environmentalists and the concerns, the serious concerns about our water and the water quality in Wicomico County.
So that issue's in flux. Are you guys going to vote on it soon, or?
Yeah, we'll certainly try to vote on it soon. One thing the council does is that we move things forward. We move things forward on the agenda as quickly as we can.
Some interesting stuff with the airport. I know Dawn was in about the lease from TSA this last week. Dawn Veach, the general manager. But there's a contract with Piedmont and with some other stuff, and you guys are involved in that. Hopeful for the airport?
Oh yeah, I think it's going to be great. I'm very happy with what Dawn's doing. We're going to take an actual tour of the airport on Friday, and I'm looking very much forward to seeing the airport. It's actually been a while since I've actually taken a tour of the airport, and to hear what Dawn has to say one-on-one, where you can actually see what the changes are that they're planning. Because I mean, that is talk about a diamond in the rough. That's fantastic. And there's a lot of deferred maintenance that we have to address at the airport, and we recognize that, and we're 100% behind Dawn, because she's absolutely doing a great job. I was at a meeting when she had joined the county early on at the Chamber of Commerce, and she was talking about everything she's doing. I said, "My gosh," I said, she's been here 3 weeks, and she's talking like she's been here 3 years. Yeah,
her list is long. It's very ambitious.
It is, and it's very direct. She's very methodical about what she wants to do.
You see people like that come into town, though, and we can't keep up with them somehow, and I think they get frustrated that we don't move at their speed. That sort of Eastern Shore way that we have.
Oh, I think we'll stay right in line with what she wants to do. Have no reservations. It's very important to the county as a whole. We recognize that. You talk about economic development. Part of that is having a viable airport, and we have a great airport. We just need to make sure that we make improvements on it.
Warwick's been in the news this year. There was the scholarship program. It was kind of difficult to get it implemented. You guys did a lot of work on that. I guess it came from the county executive. I guess he's got a new proposal now for a workforce development thing that'll be coming up.
Right.
Where are you on this Warwick thing? First of all, was this scholarship program a success in your mind for the first 2 years or first year that we had it?
I think the verdict's still out on that. We had a work session more recently on it, and I found that I was somewhat concerned by the fact that we never put a requirement on the applicants that they would have to have a 2.0 grade point average.
Right.
And I was looking to possibly implement a 2.5 grade point average at least, so that you have a quality student that's going to be moving forward. I know that some have said, well, my gosh, you're adding more restrictions. Well, it's taxpayers' dollars, and I think we have to be responsible for it. We want to have a successful program.
Right.
The fact that we didn't put, one of the reasons we didn't put any requirements on the GPA could have led to what I consider, some shortcomings in the program. From the amount of people who have actually continued through the program as opposed to those who signed up, which is a very small number, we're seeing a large percentage that haven't followed through. And in doing the numbers, instead of about a $1,500 per child program, it's about a $3,200 program. So it's tripled the cost for each student. And I don't like that as far as representing taxpayers' dollars. I think it has to be more, we have to be more accountable, we have to be more successful. So as you said, they are introducing, I haven't seen it yet, but they are considering it and they have suggested to introduce another program, a more advanced program that would be for workforce development as well.
For older people who want to maybe have a new profession.
Exactly, and I see the merits to that, but I also am very much concerned that we haven't really had, I would consider a 5-star rating on the first program, and I would like the dust to settle on that maybe before we get into some ideas of expansion. We want to make sure we get it right.
Right. It seems like it's a trend, though, nationwide, just to make sure that everyone has access, sort of an equal access kind of thing.
I guess so. I guess so. I mean, when we first considered the program for the students, we got this pushback, like this is the Bernie Sanders regime,
right.
Free education for everyone. And I justified my support of it by the fact that it was a rate of return as far as economic development, and I'm
right.
a firm believer in that. But again, I want the numbers to work. I want to make sure, and the tracking was so important to us. The fact that it was successful and the fact that we could track that
right.
it was benefiting Wicomico County. Sure, it'll benefit the students, which is great, but we also, because it's taxpayers' dollar, we want to benefit the county at the same time.
Right.
Self-serving there. But that was the whole idea, is economic development. And I can see that same concerns as far as workforce development, maybe even more so.
Right.
But it is a fine line between economic development, the purpose of it as economic development, and then just social engineering or whatever the phrase might be.
Right.
To paying, giving people free education.
Right. I know when I was an employer, you would you'd have someone in accounting who, like, they were a bookkeeper and they just come out of high school and they learned accounting or bookkeeping, and you would think, wow, if they had the potential to go to Warwick, they could really do something with their career and really advance, become a CPA or something like that. So as an employer, we would encourage that. It was just great to have Warwick there, and we would contribute toward that,
right?
As a company. And if the county does the same thing, it just seems like a win-win.
Well, I've seen people who, I talk to people who say, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. I have 3 kids,
yeah.
and I want to do this. I want to go into nursing, or I want to go into drug rehab programs for as an assistant, or I want to drive a truck. I mean, I have so many people who actually go into the trucking program.
Yeah.
And I recognize that. I applaud them for wanting to take that step further. I mean, if I had to get into a Warwick program now, I don't know if I would have the tenacity
right.
to follow through on the books. And of course, I do enough with the county as it is. That's like a separate master's degree as it is. But,
right.
I really applaud them for taking that initiative.
I don't think we've talked about the budget since you passed the budget in July.
Right.
There was some excitement there at the end where you guys went through and cut some stuff in order to fund some things in the school system.
Right.
Tell me about that.
We cut it. We cut it. We were criticized for cutting it. I couldn't believe it. I mean, how in the heck could you ever be criticized for cutting a budget, for government to cut a budget?
Right.
A very responsible thing, I thought. The budget was, well over $8.5 million above, almost $9 million above the prior year. It's a 6% increase of the prior year. So what would you look at? You would have to look at it and go, maybe the taxpayer should get some of it back. And granted, we did a very small, I know we've been criticized, saying, it was completely insignificant.
It was symbolic.
But it was symbolic, and it was also a legitimate gesture that we could do on our part.
Right.
I can't imagine what would happen if we made a 5-cent cut.
Right.
What problems we would have had to experience then. But we did a 1-cent cut because, you have to keep in mind, the council only has a limited amount of time to look at the budget. And we have to, very quickly review everything that there is to go over. And so in doing so, we found that a 1-cent tax cut would be legitimate, and without too much review, we could feel it was a safe area.
Right.
Matt Holloway suggested, well, if we're going to cut, why don't we give $320,000 back to education, because they did ask in the public hearing.
Right.
Many people came forward and they were requesting these laptop carts
right.
for the schools, and that was part of the list that the Board of Education had put together for one-time only expenses, which of course doesn't complicate things for the maintenance of effort.
Right.
So the council almost immediately, I mean, very much immediately, they were all on board for that. I remember that in reviewing the list from the Board of Education, they had suggested maybe a whiteboard could be purchased as their highest priority, but that was around 200 and some thousand,
Right.
and it would only benefit one school. And we thought, heck, with the laptops, we're covering a whole lot more territory, so we felt very comfortable about that. But overall, we gave the benefit to the citizens of Wicomico County as minimal as it was. Certainly, yeah, we would have liked to have done more. We had to do with property taxes. You can't touch sales tax.
Right.
The state of Maryland has
Or
our hands
piggyback,
tied
yeah.
on the income taxes. I mean, they have our hands tied on the income taxes. So about the only other area we have for any room to make any changes was in the property tax rate.
And it was interesting to me because I've covered these budget hearings forever, and the teachers get up and they give the same speeches every year, and
Sure.
it seems like it falls on deaf ears. And the excuse is, well, you needed to get that in your budget when the school board did its budget.
Right.
We're not going to listen to that. But
Right.
you guys apparently look like you did. You certainly acted on it, and I don't really remember that happening.
No, this was a very unique set of circumstances. I was glad to be a part of it. I mean, I was on the council for 4 years before. And of course, just after we got on the council, everything was very robust for the first year or so, and then we hit the recession. And at that time, I mean, Rick Pollitt was criticized for spending, but we cut the budget for the county
Right.
between 18 and 25%
Yeah.
during the recession, and still managed to keep a great majority of the employees.
It was amazing that the county survived and did well in the bond market throughout as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I've always said the silver lining of the recession, we've turned into a lean and mean government.
Right.
And I don't want to go back to where we're too heavy, where it is now. I think trying to keep things in line there's nothing wrong with that.
Every other year, there's a fight about a new school.
Sure.
County Executive Bob Culver's come out. He's not necessarily in favor of new schools all the time.
Right.
His line, I think, is that glass and brass is not the way to get an effective education or to raise test scores. I know there's some things coming up. There's a lot of concern about Beaver Run not being in good shape. Is there going to be a fight about Beaver Run?
I would hope not. I really would hope not. I mean, I agree 100% with what you're saying. I don't see when they say, "Oh, this school's 50 years old." Well, it should be 50 years old. It should be much older than that.
Right.
And I'm afraid that it could be that the schools that they're building now, I hope they have the same longevity as I would expect. 70, 80 years.
Right.
I think the biggest downside to schools that maybe need to be replaced is whether or not they have air conditioning facilities, and in many cases, you're modernizing schools. You're hoping to modernize them for better educational purposes, whether it's technology or whatever the means might be. Sometimes it's more than just brick and mortars. I haven't really carefully reviewed the circumstances with Beaver Run, but I know I've heard on numerous occasions that it really needs to be considered.
I think on the school board list, Glen Avenue is next for renovation, and then Beaver Run is up after that, I think, for a new school.
Yeah, I just looked at what the list was
Yeah.
with the state of Maryland, and I know the Board of Education I think they went up there just recently to talk to them, but I forget the list, Greg, but I believe you're right. Both are on there.
Yeah.
And it needs to be considered. I'm as conservative as anybody else, and our council is as conservative as any council I've worked with. But we also want to recognize what the needs are of the students in Wicomico County, and taxpayers pay money because they want good services, and that's part of the process.
There's been some confusing relationships over the years between the school board and the council. Like you mentioned before, council always complained that school board budget didn't come out till too late for them to react with their own budget decisions. But that seems better. It seems like there's a little more communication. Is there?
Well, I've always had a really great working relationship with the school board, and I think this council has an excellent working relationship with the school board. We just met with them last Tuesday, and it's just very amicable. The new superintendent, I think, is very good, and you feel as if you're dealing one-on-one with an individual, very very honest in her approach to everything. And I think it's very, very progressive. As far as the budget for the Board of Education, it's been rather clear-cut.
Right.
Maintenance of effort has probably been the standard for Wicomico County for many years. My first year on the council, we gave $750,000 above maintenance of effort. And of course, again, that was in the big day,
Right.
when everybody was worried about too much growth,
Right.
and we had too much. So that first year we gave $750,000 above maintenance of effort. Since then we have not. It's been maintenance of effort. And this is the first year since that year where we gave the $238,000 above the maintenance of effort. Of course, maintenance of effort increased by $1 million this year for the Wicomico County Board of Education. That's fine. But we've always left it at that number because that's where the state sets the bar. So that's where the county leaves it at that number.
Right. And interestingly, or maybe even surprisingly, you guys had to get very involved with the school board recently because you made school board appointments, which you've never really done.
That was a great process.
Yeah. So you had to learn stuff, I guess.
That was a great process. I'll tell you, when the council first put the elected school board matter together, we came up with the hybrid version, which was 5 elected, 2 appointed. We did that in case we felt that 7 totally elected would not create the diversity necessary, and that there would be that safety valve of 2 appointed in case there needed to be some type of
five old white guys. You want to make sure it's diverse.
In case you want to make sure that to allow for any considerations. So it went forward, and we had pushback from which surprised me. So we went through another year's process. It's okay, fine. Did public hearings, did everything. Turned out it was 100% elected.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, that's what we're going to get. But I was so surprised through this public process as to how great it was. 14 people applied for the 3 positions.
Yeah.
Stood on the stage at Bennett Auditorium and actually, explained exactly why they wanted to help Wicomico County with their Board of Education. Phenomenal. And I think the most I know the statement that was expressed that I was most struck by was an individual who said, "Hey, if they're elected, at least you'll know who they are."
Right.
Which was so true. Because appointing them in the old-fashioned way through a central committee, and then in the last couple of years, it got very convoluted.
They would self-appoint, basically.
Even the central committee sent theirs up. There were other people sending names up. There was undue influence on delegates and senators and the governor's office. It became honestly a total mess. So I think it really justified the fact that a new process was needed.
Yeah.
We're the last county, pretty much I think the last county in the state of Maryland as a holdout. And from seeing the process with the elected and how the commission made their appointments, the recommendations for these individuals, and the council chose the 3, I thought it was a great process. We have 3 very, very overly qualified individuals. And from what I can tell, in this next election cycle, we'll have a full slate of candidates to run.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because there's so many seats up for grabs. If you take the county courthouse seats plus you plus the delegates, it's like 27 or 28 races that are going to be open.
Yeah, sounds like
in November.
Sounds like it's time for 20 charter amendments.
I was going to say, yeah, we'll have a lot of time in the booth for that. But anyway. I think my hand is still tired from trying to figure out the last 20 that you did.
Yeah,
it was 14 or 13.
We narrowed it down to 10.
Okay.
Yeah, it worked out well.
But the thing I've loved about the school board, and I've teased them about this, so I can say it, as a reporter sitting there for years listening to Joe Ollinger and John Palmer get up and criticize the school board and the school system, the governor puts them on the school board, and suddenly we have the best schools ever in their mind. Once they get inside and see what's really going on,
I thought that was a telltale sign.
Yeah.
And believe me, I think both of those gentlemen, they review it.
Yeah.
They review it. And I've gotten a lot of phone calls from Joe in particular, and a lot of emails from Joe in particular on some very significant issues that really helped us understand where the Board of Education was with particular issues.
Yeah, he was actually a great board member, and I was sorry to see him because he would help explain stuff to me, which the board members before were never really. They was always going to come from the superintendent, call the superintendent.
Right.
But it's nice to have a board member explain stuff in a sort of pedestrian way.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of elections, what's going on with the county council? Who do you think is going to run and not run?
Well,
do you worry about that stuff?
I'd love to see everybody run because we have such a good working relationship as a council as a whole, and I'd like to see everybody throw their hat in the ring for another 4 years.
What about yourself? There's rumors that you might want to be county executive?
Well, I'm definitely running. I get asked on a regular basis as far as the executive position is concerned. We're still evaluating that.
I thought it was interesting at Salisbury University for the 150th anniversary gala.
Right.
It seemed to me like you gave a campaign speech up there. It was long and it was interesting. It was humorous. It was very revealing.
Well,
and
good.
when you were done, I was like, that guy is running for county executive.
No, I was just doing what I do naturally. No, you're the first person that's given me any great feedback on it. I never knew. I just did what I did, walked off, and hoped I didn't put anybody to sleep. But Michael asked me to speak, and I just gave an overview of what I felt were such benefits of living in Wicomico County, and I meant every word of it. And fortunately, we had a great audience there too. So it was a wonderful opportunity. I appreciated it.
It seems like the council gets beaten up a little bit for not getting along with the executive. Is it that way or is it the other way? When people say it to you, if they do, how do you react?
Oh, I think the council's been very, 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 I think, open-minded about all the animosity that's been created. I do think it's unfortunate that there's been this divisiveness on the council, but we work through day to day. We certainly address the issues as they come before us. The worst part of the whole scenario is that the way that the charter is broken down is that even if we feel there is a violation of the charter, there's really nothing in there to give the council the teeth that's necessary to enforce any violations of the charter outside of going to court over something. And why would we do that? That's not what we were elected to do.
Right.
So we have to sort of grin and bear it and try to work through it and change what we can change. That's part of the 10 charter amendments from the prior election term was the fact that there's a lot of frustration over irregularities and violations of the charter, and we're glad to see the public chose to vote in favor of those amendments.
You think county executives? Someone said the other day they said they never should have passed the county executive form of government anyway. Do you ever feel like that, or?
I have felt like that, and yes, I have felt like that just because, in working through these last few years of seeing, how such an imbalance can be created. It can be disheartening at times. I also am concerned about the expenses as to whether it's as efficient as it is. The amount of money that's being spent on an executive branch. So I've experienced some reservations in regard to that, but I think we are where we are. We're going to move forward with it. I don't see that branch of government being removed at any time.
I interviewed Bob Culver on Monday. He just announced for re-election. He's the only one who's announced so far. And I've always been struck, there's a lot of criticism of him, but people aren't really stepping up to run like I thought they would. It's still a little early. You've got till February to make up your mind, I guess, if you're going to run, anyone who wants to be a candidate. But one thing I sort of disagree with him, he says that he doesn't like it when the council and him sort of fight on PAC 14 or have disagreements. He'd rather sort things out and then go in the room. And as a reporter, I'm completely against that. But is that what is needed to make government seem more cohesive? Where you guys would meet up front and kind of get a consensus on stuff before you bring it out to the public?
Well, I have no problem meeting one-on-one. As I said, I did that when Rick was the county executive. I have no problem with that whatsoever. The recommendation had been to meet on a weekly basis with only 3 council members to discuss matters. And first of all, who's going to start picking the 3 council members to go in and have these private discussions? Then how are you going to share that with the rest of the council if they're supposed to be private meetings? You can't do it.
Right.
And it's circumventing the Open Meetings Act. It's not illegal. But to me, it's sort of circumventing the Open Meetings Act. I appreciate the gesture, but it's way out of line. And, but I don't want someone using that against me and saying that I'm not agreeing to cooperate, because that's not it at all. Early on, I was asked to participate in the budget sessions with the executive and the department heads. And I said, well, I appreciate that, but that violates the charter. We have a legislative and executive branch of government, and I shouldn't be involved in the budget process until it comes to the council. Right. So those are those issues where I don't want to try to circumvent the charter. I don't want to even the perception of violating any laws. I think we can do it above board. But again, no problem meeting at any point in time.
You've been in public service a long time. Your father was a great public servant. Your brother was president of City Council of Salisbury. That's a tradition in your family. Is it fun?
I love it. I really do. It's an opportunity. It's a privilege, really. It gives you an opportunity to be able to look at issues and try to use your best judgment to fix them, because you get a lot of satisfaction in that if you feel like you're getting somewhere. Meeting with citizens in the community, and they're coming to you because they ask for your support. It's like with the stormwater management. I really seriously want to try to address this and get it done, because you can't just be a mouthpiece. You have to execute. And I enjoy having the opportunity to do that, because it is a privilege.
He's John Cannon. He's president of our Wicomico County Council. You should watch these guys in their meetings on PAC 14. It's a fascinating look at personalities, character, issues. It's like a great TV show. John, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent Newspaper. Another edition of 101 right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.